If you're a single mom or a single mom to be, I think you'll get a lot out of this episode. Today, you're going to meet a woman who's an investigative journalist and had this fantastic single life, but she wasn't happy because she really wanted to be a mom. She wanted to be a mom more than anything in the world. And she went through so much to try to become a mother. She went through difficulties finding a sperm donor, miscarriage, significant, very significant mental illness, all sorts of problems with her family, problems building a community. And yet she was triumphant. She now has the family of her dreams and is happier than she's ever been. So please listen to this episode. If you're interested in single motherhood, I think you will get so much out of it. Welcome to Building Your Family. This is a podcast about donor conception, surrogacy, and all the ways a modern family is built. And today you're going to meet a single mom by choice, but she's not just any single mom by choice. She's also a well-known author of a book named Inconceivable, and she's also a journalist. And although she's a journalist and has so many connections and so much intelligence and so much know-how, she still had a difficult time, as most of us do, pursuing family building. And today she's having the family of her dreams and she's having a beautiful time with her son, Declan, and she's going to tell us all about it. So welcome, Valerie.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so thrilled to be here. And just for everybody out there, I want you to know Valerie's sitting outside because the kids are inside. Her friend who she's living with has a child as well. And so I hope you can appreciate that there's a little background noise, but hopefully we will have all of you who want to be single moms by choice having the same sorts of problems one day as well. That's a good problem to have. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you started to think about, I want to be a single mom, and how that started to evolve.
So it was the first summer of the pandemic in 2020, and I was 38 years old. And I just kind of realized I was pretty much out of time. And I kind of ran the numbers. If I met somebody right now, which dating wasn't really happening in the summer of 2020,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
would, if I met someone right then, I'd want to date for at least a year. And then if you got engaged, another year, and then I'd be 40 and then trying to have kids, but maybe you want to be married for a little bit before you have kids. I realized looking back on my romantic life, I had been in relationships where kids were allegedly on the table as well as marriage, and the men just never moved forward with it. And I couldn't put my fertility and my dreams of motherhood on hold for a hypothetical anymore. And I realized I had to make it possible. I think the pandemic made a lot of us think about our mortality, and
Yes.
I couldn't live and die without becoming a mom. So I decided to strike out and look into donor conception. I started, like most of us, with the sperm banks. For me personally, it was discouraging because I was acutely aware that I wouldn't be having a biological father actively in my kid's life. And I wanted to give him or her as many answers as possible about this person. I wanted to meet my donor. And
Yes.
so as I was contemplating this, I literally Googled a sperm donor that and all of these interesting things came up. There's Facebook groups, there's an app called Just a Baby, there's the known donor registry. So I
Mm-hmm.
started doing research and went on a multi-year quest to find the right person who I could actually meet and interrogate and make sure that, a lot of people look for a sperm donor and they think, I want blue eyes and blonde hair, or, I want somebody, who is very tall or has this degree in education.
Right.
I wanted to find somebody who was a good person. I wanted somebody with integrity and good character who I could feel good that one day when my child seeks them out, they would receive them with warmth and kindness and an open mind to the experience my child was going through.
That's great.
It was a long, arduous journey, lots of twists and turns, but here I am now with a beautiful 3-month-old boy.
Mm.
And I used a donor that I found on Facebook who I'm still in touch with now. I'm sending pictures and providing him with updates. He is going to receive letters and respond to letters from the child at different points in the kiddo's life, and is willing to meet the child at 18. So this isn't a choice that everyone would make, but this is what worked for me and helped me build my unconventional family.
Wow. Well, I want to talk about all of that. But first, I just want to help everyone who's out there understand how you got to where you are. So this is beautiful. And I know you've said in many articles how happy you are and everything's just fantastic. But you started looking and you found like a lot of things that were really horrible out there. I think, situations that were really unappealing. And then you had mental health challenges and there were a lot of different bumps in the road. Can you tell us a little bit how you got through those things and how you could circumvent, how people out there can circumvent some of these issues?
If you're going to pursue a freelance sperm donor, whether it's on the Facebook pages or an app or otherwise, there are a lot of creeps out there. It's something you have to navigate. There's a lot of men
Yeah.
with breeding fetishes who want to get women pregnant. They will pressure women for sex. They will string women along. There are guys who scam women and say they'll ship them sperm, take their money, and never send any sperm. So I think, fortunately, with my background as an investigative journalist, I was very cautious. I wanted to do background
Yes.
checks on, any guys that I dealt with and wanted to make sure that they had a clear online presence so I could research them. But, I think the worst case scenario was I came across a man who was in the groups and I had seen him posting quite a bit. He was very popular. He had red hair and blue eyes, which is a popular combination for a lot of recipients. And it came out after he'd produced about a dozen children that he was a registered sex offender.
Wow.
So you want to be very careful about what you're getting yourself into and who you're choosing as your child. That's why you can't just go with these shallow notions of I want a baby that looks like, a designer baby XYZ.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that was one challenge, is just, doing your research and taking your time. Taking People will go on these sites and say I need a donor by Friday. And I just think
Mhm.
that's not something I would recommend. The donor I went with, I got to know him for weeks and months and, developed a relationship and understanding of his belief system and moral compass. And I think that was why I was successful and feel so good about my decision. In terms of my mental health struggles, after trying home insemination for about 10 or 12 cycles, so around a year, I was doing this medicated. So I
Mhm.
was, taking medication to, boost my egg
Produce
production.
eggs. Mhm.
Exactly. And it was still not working. So I moved on to IVF, and fortunately my donor agreed to continue to help me. I went through 3 egg retrieval cycles, and one of those cycles produced 2 genetically normal embryos. I was thrilled. I had, a low AMH and as was of an age that the doctors were skeptical and already pushing donor eggs on me, and I really just wanted to have a shot at, having a biological child if possible. Although donor eggs I think is a an absolutely viable route, and I know people who've done that with success and joy. I had a miscarriage and it was devastating, and afterward I took some time to let myself recover before I transferred my last embryo. And it was about almost a year later. And Mother's Day came around, and I just was profoundly depressed. I was so scared to transfer my last embryo, and I felt like that
Mm.
would be the end of my journey if it didn't work. At this point, I was 41 at this point. I'm now 42, and I just fell into a deep depression, was having some suicidal ideation,
Mm.
and all I could think is, what is the point of life if you don't have children? If you don't experience
Mm.
the laughter and the love of children, if you don't have something to give to the next generation of humanity? For me, these are very heavy things, and
Yes.
I was struggling with it. And fortunately, I had a good mental health system in place and sought help. And I spent 6 days in the hospital getting some care and getting back on track. And shortly after that, I began the process of, medicating and starting my final transfer. And that resulted in my son.
Well, I think that that's really important, I think, for people to hear, Valerie, because I do feel that, for some people, going through motherhood is something that they could say, okay, well, if I become a mother, that's great. If not, I'll make a great life for myself. And then other people feel so strongly and so passionately about it. And I think for those people, they really need to keep trying to pursue it. But it's difficult when you're facing so many obstacles, right? You're trying to do this on your own. You're trying to do it financially. You're trying to do it logistically, trying to find this donor. And so many people might say, well, I guess I shouldn't have a child then, or maybe God doesn't want me to, or maybe it's not meant for me and I'm not supposed to do that. And I think to be able to listen to your heart and to continue to pursue it is so important.
It is. And the sad reality is that not everybody who perseveres will be successful. I still pinch myself every day that my dream has come true. But I do think that if you are going to go down this fertility path, that you need to have some perseverance. A lot of people expect it to happen right away. It doesn't always work
Hmm.
that way.
Right.
And when you are pursuing solo motherhood, as I was, and I talk about this in my book, Inconceivable, it becomes very lonely. You don't have a partner to lean on. You don't have somebody
Right.
else who grieves, the failed cycles, the miscarriage with you. That is an acutely lonely experience. And to be able to continue to get yourself out of bed and keep trying and living kind of an ascetic lifestyle because you're trying to be as healthy as possible to
Hmm.
produce those eggs and to have that baby. It's a tough road, but I'm glad that I kept going, and I I hope for everybody out there going through something similar that they will have the success that I've had.
Yeah, it's so important and to try to be true to yourself. But as you said, it's very hard to not have a support system, and yet you found a way around that also. I know that you've decided to move in with your best friend, and you have this great setup now, and you have people around you who support you. How did you decide to do that? Because we often talk about building your chosen family and how important that is, not just because you want the support, but also you want people to share your values and be your cheerleader and be there for you, and we can't always choose our relatives, right? So it sounds like you've built a really nice environment for yourself.
It was kind of logistical. I mean, I was running the numbers on, childcare. I was only going to be able to afford daycare really. And fortunately, my friend very generously agreed to let me and my son move in with her. And I'm now paying her to do my childcare in home. And I can completely feel secure and trusting that the person caring for him is somebody who shares my values. It's just such a relief and a comfort to see how much my son loves my best friend and how he melts into her arms, and I can feel
Mm.
secure that the childcare he's getting is the best there is, and I have him nearby here at home so I can take a break to breastfeed him if I need to. It's also just been advantageous to live near my family. I'm very aware that my son doesn't have a biological father in his daily life. So to live near two of my three brothers, his uncles, and my parents has been hugely rewarding. And I want him to have as much love and family, chosen and otherwise, in his life. So this has been the right decision for me. It's not going to be something, I do for a decade, but I think for the first year or two of his life, having this arrangement is working really beautifully. And my friend and I are in the process of developing a podcast ourselves, two single moms,
Mm.
talking about how
Oh,
we navigate this chosen family and built this unconventional family. Her son is 12 years old, but he has pretty severe cerebral palsy. And
oh
so,
gosh,
so she's dealing with challenges as a mother of a child with disability. I'm dealing with the challenges of being a solo mom, and so we're going to be talking a lot about different elements of that, those different nuances and how we support each other and what that looks like.
that's fantastic. So you said you're only planning on having this arrangement for a year or two. Why is that? Why is it just a short term?
I think for the short term, because it's a lot to ask of my friend, first of all. And I think, it's a reasonable thing for a couple years. And then, when he gets older, when he gets closer to 3 and he's school age, I think that'll be a lot of my, putting him into pre-K will be a lot of my childcare at that point. And also, geographically, I may want to relocate somewhere on the East Coast career wise. That may make more sense. And she's in Washington State. So, I think I want some geographic freedom as he gets a little bit older and I have other childcare options.
My name is Lisa Schumann. I'm a therapist, a researcher, an author, and I am passionate about helping people find a better journey to parenthood. I created the Center for Family Building to help people understand how to make decisions, not just for the short term, but for a lifetime. We have group counseling, individual counseling, couples counseling, and lots of other services that can help people find the answers that they're looking for. Just take a look at our website so you can see a few of the thousands of people we helped build a better path to parenthood. The decisions you make are too important to leave up to chance. Arm yourself with the right information. Take a look at our website and sign up for a session with one of our therapists, join one of our groups, or access one of our programs, and you will quickly see why our strategies are so effective. Now back to our episode. And what about your friends and family? How receptive was everyone to this process when you started it?
I didn't tell my mom for about the first year or so, a little over a year, that I was trying to get pregnant. My folks are extremely Catholic and really believe
Mm.
in the importance of traditional family structures and, getting married and having kids that way. And I knew that she wouldn't approve. And I talk about my book, I had kind of tested the water and said, what if I had a baby through sperm bank? And my mom said, oh, don't do it. It'll break your father's heart.
Oh, wow.
So there was a lot of negativity around it. And I detail, again, in my book, the conversation I had when I broke down and told her I went through my first egg retrieval and got no embryos. And she had come out to visit me right after this. And I just broke down and sobbed and told her everything. She was amazingly responsive. She said, Valerie, I would never want one of my kids to live or not live their life in a certain way because they were afraid of what I would think. And
Hmm.
with those words, she set me free. My
Wow.
relationship with my father has been more complex. We actually weren't speaking for about 3 years, but when I became pregnant, I reached out and let him know. And kids have a way of bringing people together, and we are back to building our relationship. And he is a bright light in my son's life. And I, have my family back, which is great.
That's amazing. So, how did that happen? Because if your father was opposed to you doing this at first, how do you think he came around?
Well, he came around because you can't unring the bell. When a baby is in the womb and developing, at this point, this is a life that's coming into the world. And he had it, I'm still sure still has his feelings about how I've gone about it and the fact that my child won't have a biological father in his life on a daily basis. But you can't look at this kid and not love him. You can't look at him and know that he
Mm.
is, your descendant and not love him. So I think that he's just chosen to focus on the beauty of having this new little life in this world and, let go of the negative feelings as much as possible. At least he doesn't share them with me, which I'm grateful for. So we're really
Mhm.
just trying to move forward as a family.
That's great. Well, it's so nice that there's a happy story there to that because I know people worry about that all the time. And what about like in, your day-to-day environment? If you're in the supermarket or you're going someplace, do you share with people if they say, where's oh, he looks like his dad, or, where's his dad today or something like that. Do you share it openly or do you just want to kind of move on or how do you usually discuss it with people?
I thought a lot about this because part of me thought, he's not old enough to understand, and maybe I shouldn't share his story with other people before he has a chance to own it himself. But at the same time, I don't think there's any shame in what I've done. And I
Mhm.
want him to feel very normal. I want him to see me, from before he can remember, feeling very comfortable with handling that question. So I just say I'm a solo mom by choice. I used a sperm donor and leave it at that. And sometimes they have shocked expressions and seem scandalized and clutch their pearls. And sometimes they're just like, oh, cool. How interesting. I was always going to deal with people's judgment over this. And I think a big
Mm.
part of making the decision to become a solo mom by choice was accepting that I am the only person responsible for making the decisions in my life. And that seems pretty straightforward, but when you let go of expectations of your parents, your family, society, and you ask yourself, what do I want? What do I think is the right thing to do? What do I think in my heart of heart? When my moral compass is pointing north, what do I need to do? And I just got real comfortable with living with the fact that other people aren't gonna be happy with my life choices sometimes, and they're entitled to feel however they're gonna feel. But at the end of the day, I've got this beautiful boy, and I can't imagine anyone looking at him and saying that he was a mistake or a wrong decision.
Well, that is beautiful, Valerie. And also, clearly, you're very resilient in being able to kind of do that because it is hard. I think it kind of stops people in their tracks sometimes thinking, what are people going to think? And people are not going to accept me, or my family's not going to accept me, or should I be doing this? And that is so difficult on top of all the other things. And then of course there is this issue of dating, right? Because you have to kind of put a pause on that button for a little bit. Have you thought about that?
I have. Um, I feel like I'm recovering from, an emergency C-section and figuring out life as a mom, but I think, I would like to date again eventually. It kind of cracks me up how often people say, oh, men aren't going to want to date a woman with children. They don't want to raise another man's children. When we see women who date divorced men talk about, oh, I'm a bonus mom. I'm going to take on these stepchildren and be a bonus mom. And I get along so great with his ex. Women are built to nurture, and women are built to love and support and look for human connection. And I think men biologically want to spread their seed, and they don't want to raise another man's child in a lot of cases. But that's, these are generalizations. And if there are men who don't want to date a woman with a child, or a woman who took the route that I did, then those are not the men for me. I love men. I'm not anti-man. I think,
Mhm.
I've got three wonderful brothers and this beautiful boy in my life, and it's a matter of finding the right person. And I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on that. The fact that I've had my son takes the pressure off of that, because I'm no longer aggressively looking for someone to help me procreate.
Right.
If somebody looks at my life and my family and sees my son as a handicap, they are not the one for me. And that's almost a good screening tool, saving some
Mhm.
time and ruling these people out. Maybe if I had done this sooner, I wouldn't have wasted time on some of the people I've dated in the past. So go figure.
Well, I do think that even though there still is some concern for a lot of people, the world is changing, right? We do see so many more people have a different idea about what family looks like, right? People are have their chosen family members, and also we're seeing so many single moms have the baby first and then the partner second rather than what we grew up thinking we should be doing. People are doing all sorts of things to kind of build the families that they want. So I think that's great. And I hope that people feel encouraged by that because you absolutely can do that and create the family that you want. But it clearly takes a lot of determination and persistence in doing this. Were there times where you felt like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could handle this, or it just feels like too overwhelming? Were there any parts of your story where you felt like, I can't imagine this going on?
The failure of my body. I was stunned to not be more fertile than I am. I think the hardest thing for me was just to keep going when my body was failing me. I don't think any of the social aspects of it, kept me from moving forward. Again, I did think long and hard about, denying a child a biological father who was going to be present. But I think the fact that you do everything right for so long to get pregnant and it just keeps not happening, it's just such a baffling and demoralizing experience. And I had to find new reserves of energy and hope that I didn't think I would ever have to call on. And I think it's shaped me into someone better prepared for motherhood, actually, because I'm grateful for it. at frustrating moments will lean on the gratitude that I feel that this is even possible.
That's really beautiful. And that's so great that you can kind of keep that idea in your back pocket, and it gives you strength, and it gives you, fuels you in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I'm 3 months into it, so check on me in
No
5
comment.
years.
Well, I think you said in one of these articles that you've never been happier.
No, I haven't ever been happier, and, living here with my friend has just been such a beautiful experience. I wake up every day and I look at my son's face and I can't believe this is real, and I can't believe the love that I feel for him, and it's just what I was put on earth to do. I just don't know how else to
Oh,
say it. It's just, and it's not like having him has been this, explosive, like, yes, I'm happier than I've ever been, but at the same time, part of it just feels like this is right. This is natural. Like I was living my life in such a way that was kind of selfish and focused on myself, as single women or men do,
yeah.
but to be in service to a child and trying to shape them into a good human being, it just feels like this is my purpose. This is natural and exactly what I'm here for.
It's beautiful, and I think you're an inspiration for so many people out there who wanna pursue this, but have so many reservations, so many fears, so many insecurities, and then you have all of these obstacles finding a donor. And it sounds like you've just told us a little bit today, but I know just from looking in your history that you did spend a lot of time really trying to kind of weigh all of these decisions about, do I go to the sperm bank? Should I use the sperm bank? Should I go on Facebook? Should I go to matching site? Should I? It was really quite a process for you of weighing the pros and cons in all of these areas. And it can be very overwhelming for people, right, to make those decisions.
Absolutely. It's very overwhelming, and especially when you're doing it by yourself. I mean, if I had a partner to say, "Is this the right thing to do?" It would have been nice to pawn off the
Mhm.
responsibility on somebody else, but you can't take it lightly. You have to really look, am I financially and emotionally prepared to be a parent? And I think what really changed the game for me more than anything is talking to donor conceived people. I think, the
Hmm.
concept of donor conceived rights is a relatively new notion in, the national and international conversation, but kids don't ask to be born. And so often I want to be a mom, I want to have kids. That's about me. Let's think
Right.
about the kid that is going to be created. What might they
Mhm.
want? How might they feel about their origin story? And that was challenging for me. I really had to, examine that there are selfish elements at play here. But,
Of course.
my biological imperative to have a child was so strong that I had to move forward and just do it as conscientiously as I could. And I've sent to my donor a long list of questions that I'm hoping to get back sometime in the next 6 months or so, because I'm putting together a book, about, this is, your bio dad, this is mom's sperm donor, this is what he likes, this is, what he was good at in school, and then deeper things, like what's a challenge that you faced that you never thought you'd overcome, but you did, so
Mhm.
I'm trying to have as many answers and as much information as possible so that he doesn't feel that void as much as I can help him. And then I'm also mentally preparing myself for, he may be angry one day. He may be, mom, I wanted a dad. Why would you do this? And the fact is, if I had pursued this any other way, I would have a different kid. And this is the kid I meant to have. I don't think there was a wrongful birth here, but I
Mm.
want to hold space for him, and I want to be a safe person for him to talk about his anger. I don't want him to feel like he has to protect my feelings and don't make mommy feel bad about what she did. No,
Right.
you're the kid. You don't have to protect my feelings. I have to own that I made a decision that affects you and how you're feeling right now. And it's okay if you're mad at me about that, or if it's okay if you're disappointed that this is your life, let's work through it together. And I just never want him to think he needs to protect me in any way. I never want him to feel like he has to protect my feelings and, oh, I can't tell mommy that my heart is breaking because, I don't get to meet my dad till I turn 18. I can't let mommy see that I'm sad because I need to protect her. No, I'm here. I need to own that this decision affects his life. And he may not always love how he feels about my decision. And I need to give him room to feel that because he's the kid. His feelings should be protected. And he, if I have to take ownership that I made a decision to create him in a way that he may not always feel excellent about, that's okay. And I'm mentally preparing for those conversations down the road.
Well, that's great. I mean, I think that's very courageous and wonderful. We don't know how he's going to feel. Suspect he'll be very happy with your beautiful family the way it is, and very happy to have you as a mom, Valerie, because he's very lucky to have you and to be so thoughtful about all of these things. What do you think that we're missing out of this story as we're talking to other people who are thinking about pursuing single parenthood and concerned about building a community or finding the right donor or how they're going to afford it or any of these things? Do you feel like we've missed anything?
Well, I think you touched on a big one with building community. One of the earliest things I did on my journey was I found a Facebook group for aspiring single moms by choice in the greater Washington, D.C. area and got a group of about 7 or 8 of us together. And
Great.
this is almost 4 years ago now. And one by one, everybody got pregnant. I was the last one to get pregnant and have my baby. But
Wow.
having other people going through the same thing as you, sharing in your joys and disappointments and heartbreaks, supporting you, showing you that it can be done is so essential. So I think, the first step after going to the fertility clinic and checking your levels and everything is build your community, find the people who are going to support you in the long term. And I'm so grateful for those women and continue to and be inspired by and amazed by them.
It's wonderful to have that community. And it's also wonderful for your son because we also know donor conceived children like to meet other people who are donor conceived.
Yeah,
They like to be able to share that. So you have this whole community of people who he can talk to and be friends with and have this kind of extended sort of family.
absolutely. Absolutely. You want to see your family modeled back in other families around you. It's just very human to want to find points of commonalities as you're
Yes.
growing up as a child and trying to understand where you fit in. And so I hope to give that to my son as much as possible.
It's so nice. And he probably feels like your best friend is like another relative also, or
Oh,
will
yeah.
continue to feel that way.
We call her Auntie Abby, and
Mhm.
her son Wyatt is his cousin, so we're very,
Mhm.
very close. We recently baptized our kids together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so our families all came together and we kind of had a barbecue and celebrated. So it is a big extended family. The more love, the better.
Right. And the right type, right? I mean, you want people who are going to love you, for your choices, for the lifestyle that you've decided to live. And that is, again, tough with people who are genetic relatives because we can't always choose them, right? So building this community is so essential. And I think that's very key and wonderful to share. I really appreciate all of this, Valerie. And I congratulate you on your book. That's so exciting.
Thank you. Yes, it's called Inconceivable: Super Sperm Donors, Off the Grid Insemination, and Unconventional Family Planning. It came out in April. It's available on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. It was a labor of love, and it's a little bit terrifying that it's out there because I really just opened up and let all the truth hang out, good, bad, and ugly. So I would love to share it with the world.
That's great. Well, we all need it. We all need more information, more support, and more faces of people who are doing these things that can be so hard and challenging. And yet there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think it's so helpful to hear your story. People need to understand that they can get there too, and that it might take a lot more than they expected. It might be harder. It may be more disappointing at times and more expensive, certainly, but they can get there. And I think that your life here is a shining example. So thank you for joining us. So Valerie, how can people reach you?
I'm on X at Valerie Reports and on Instagram at v.unexpected.
Well, thanks so much, Valerie. I appreciate that. And all of you out there, please connect with her. She's a wealth of knowledge about all these experiences and is obviously very open and supportive and wants to help. So please reach out to her. And you can find us, of course, on net. And anytime that you're interested, please return to this podcast for more information because we are here to serve you and help you have a better path to parenthood. So thanks so much for coming. Thank you for your time. And please hit subscribe because that's how we keep going. And I will see you next week. Hi, it's Lisa Schumann. I hope that you enjoyed that video and I hope it helped you. And if it did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe because that's how we keep going. It's really important to us. And if you liked it, you might like this one.